मुनीर भाई, प्लीज unmute.
I'm here very much.
Okay. So who will be chairing this? I think Ruchi Smita has not come. Please give a message.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay. So Shabri Nair will be chairing the session.
No, Smita will chair. Sabrina has some other work.
Okay. Oh, great. So
Smita has come. So Ruchi will now introduce.
happy to meet again. How many have joined so far?
We have 10 now.
Okay.
Naresh also came.
Okay. Oh, great.
I'm just operating the other one.
Hello.
Smita, you take care of. I'm just going up.
Yeah. I'll be helping her out.
Okay. Munir is there to help.
Hello, sir.
Hello, sir. Hello. Sadanand, sir. Hello.
I'm here. Ruchi, can we just take 2 seconds? I mean, I just need to switch on my video. I think some.
Sure. Take your time, no problem.
Thanks a lot.
Oh, Ruchi is also there.
Yeah, I'm also there.
Oh, that's great. Great
Hello,
to see.
Munir bhai.
Hey, Naresh ji. Hello. How are you?
I am fine. How are you, dear?
Fine. Happy to see you all diaspora.
Yes.
Hello, Naresh sir.
Hello, madam. Hello. कैसे हो रुचि मैडम?
बिल्कुल अच्छे सर, आप कैसे हो?
हाँ, मैं ठीक हूँ. आप कैसे हो?
It's good to see all the people together again.
स्मिता is also here.
Yeah, she's also.
रुचि करवा चौथ के फोटो लगाए थे इसमें.
Yesterday I was introducing in this way that I said Sahu sir switch on नहीं कर सकते अभी I'm doing some ritual. But I managed to give vote of thanks and all in those attire.
Great. Great visibility and it's really nice. And so.
Yes, guys, I think it's now.
Hello, Smita ji.
Yes, hello everyone. Wow, so nice to see you all.
Hello, madam. Hello.
Hello,
Smita,
Mr.
madam, hello.
Munir, and hello, Naresh. I was hearing all the gupshup. मैंने मिस किया रुचि का पिक्स मैंने नहीं देखा.
I'm again presenting in front of Smita.
You, in fact, I don't know what coincidence it is. Wherever you present, I don't know how I become the chair. Last time, even you remember. I think it's a sort of combination we are developing.
No, really nice. Okay, I see how many of this have joined. Shahana. Shahana. There is one presenter, Shahana. So she had conveyed that she may not be presenting, but if she is around, then of course, if she has changed her mind, then that I do not know. So just Ruchi, you can also take up the list of people who are actually present, so that the chair can schedule things accordingly.
Sure, sir. We can spell out the names. Naresh sir is there. Shahana is not there. Mr. Arnab, are you there? He is also not there. So far, we don't have 2 presenters. Shahana and Mr. Arnab is not there.
Rest 6 are there, okay. Right? I think we total have.
Then Munir sir, you're there.
Yeah.
Om Prakash Manjhi. He is also not there in the participant list. So till now we have only 3 presenters. Naresh sir, Munir sir. No, Arnab is not there. Prakash Manjhi is not there. Shahana is not there. 3 presenters are not there from the beginning. Manjhi is also not there. I don't know. Most of the presenters are not there, I guess. Yeah, Mustafizur Rahman is there.
Ruchi, you count how many are there?
3 are there. So far 3 are there.
So far 3.
Yeah.
So should we wait for 2 minutes or should we start?
We can start with.
They'll come and join in later on, maybe.
Yeah.
As they come, they may join. Fine.
Let me do that.
I think
do the formality. Yeah.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the session and fourth day of the conference. I'm sure you must have gained lots of insights and lots of valuable feedbacks on research papers in the various sessions. And I'm sure in this session also you are going to have lots of various inputs, valuable inputs from Dr. Smita and all other esteemed dignitaries in the session. So let me have honor of introducing you, Dr. Smita. Dr. Smita Tiwari is a founding member of GRFDT. Currently, she is teaching in University of Delhi and taking courses on foreign policy and comparative politics. Earlier, she was a research fellow at the Indian Council of World Affairs, New Delhi, and worked there for nearly 6 years, dealing with issues of foreign policy, security studies, and international migration. Before joining ICWA, she taught collectively 2.5 years in University of Delhi and Jamia Millia Islamia, taking courses on various issues of India's foreign policy and South Asia. She has been part of many research projects and has several publications to her credit. Dr. Tiwari has received her PhD from South Asian Studies Division, School of International Studies, JNU. She has also qualified Junior Research Fellowship and Senior Research
I
Fellowship.
think.
And it's just one more line conducted by the UG.
Okay.
Her research interests include India's foreign and neighborhood policies, Indian diaspora, South Asian diaspora, and international. We welcome on your board, Dr. Smita, and it's always pleasure to have you in this kind of sessions. I'm sure the students and the participants are going to have lots of valuable insights from you. So we can begin the session. So it's over to
Thank
you,
you so
Dr.
much.
Smita.
Thank you so much, Ruchi, for this lovely introduction. In fact, I would say that it's a honor to me to chair such an excellent and wonderful session or panel. So I'm extremely grateful to the organizers. Today's theme is like return and integration, which I believe is very, very important. And it has always been important. But if we look particularly the present situation, present scenario, it has become all the more important because, under this pandemic, we have witnessed that huge population have returned back to their origin country or their home country. And it has really been challenging to both to the migrant and to the government to reintegrate them, to rehabilitate their society. So it requires a kind of collaborative and very calculative measures from the policymakers. Uh, the approach which requires, but today we have very excellent panel, and I think we would be listening a wide range of views for in this session. But the questions which I would just put few questions and would hope that the presenters uh, give some reflections on that. Uh, we would basically try to understand that why do migrants return, number one, and what return and integration mean to the involved countries, both the home as well as the host countries, and how do we understand all these from a migrant
You're
perspective?
not audible, Dr. Smita.
Am I not audible properly?
Yeah, you're audible now.
Okay.
Okay. So I was just talking about certain issues or certain points upon which we would like to have the presenters reflect their views. So looking forward for the first presentation, and maybe we would discuss it later on, and I'll give my certain comments as Dr. Ruchi mentioned at the end of the session. But let's start from the first presenter, Dr. Naresh, and he is presenting on illegal or undocumented immigrants and refugees in historical perspective. So Dr. Naresh, are you here?
Yes, I am here, Dr. Smita.
So please, floor is all yours.
Actually, I was never thought that I'm the first one. As per the previous schedule, I was thinking that I'm the last one. Okay, and so no issue. So I am
actually,
going
the
to.
schedule I received, I think your name was at the top. So I think.
Okay. So no issue.
Okay.
And thank you very much, Dr. Smita ji, for chairing this very informative session. And in this, I think this is the last day of this international e-conference, and it is going to be very wonderful. And we are going to learn so many new things, and new aspects and new dimension, and how this subject matter will be go further to strengthen in this different level. So thank you very much to give me opportunity to share my thoughts. So I'm going to start. Actually, I don't have any PPT, so I will be continue through this. And I also have the same problem of the internet connectivity issue. So I'm going to start. If somewhere you found in connectivity, so please respond to me. Huh?
Yes,
So
Dr. Narosh, one more thing. I think all the
yeah,
presenters have 10 to 12 minutes. So please keep it in mind the time limit. And
okay,
I
okay,
think,
okay.
yeah, focus on the main argument of your paper.
Yes, yes, sure, sure, sure.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so I'm going to start. So my topic is illegal or undocumented immigrants and refugees in India. Particularly, I'm looking in the case of historical and current perspectives. So in this paper, actually, I just try to focus what are the different important sources of data, particularly in the case of undocumented migration or the refugees in India. And are we have actually sufficient number of statistics in case of like flow and stored data, which can be established trend and flow of foreign undocumented immigrants or refugee population in India. And third important aspect is which I am going to discuss in this paper, that is the what are the important reasons for their arrival in India and why where they are actually especially settled down in different location of India, and what kind of scope and limitation in case of availability of the secondary sources of data to understand the scope and challenges of undocumented immigrants, or particularly in the undocumented immigrants and refugee population in India. So as I think there is a last 4 days we have discussed lots of things about the refugees and undocumented immigrants and other forms of migration also. So as if you look in the case of India and particularly in South Asian countries, actually they have so many kinds of similarity in terms of socio-ethnic similarities or socio-cultural or geographical or similarities. Actually, most of the country in the South Asian region has been become independent at the maybe same time or after certain 4 or 5 years later. So they have gone through the similar past of the actually situations. So all them have actually faced under the control of the Britishers, and this region, whole region has been actually under the control of the Britishers. So, and South Asian, as I told you, there is the socio-cultural and ethnic similarities, and also there is a certain regions which has been actually forced to migration from the, particularly in the case of India, from the neighboring countries, from Pakistan, from West Pakistan, from East Pakistan to India, and other neighboring countries from China and Bhutan, Nepal, or Myanmar or Bangladesh also. So we have actually lots of undocumented immigrants in India or in a form of refugees population. So different actually estimation has been made by the different agencies or expert group to understand the undocumented immigrants or illegal immigrants, generally known as the illegal immigrants, but I call them as undocumented immigrants because the actually the term recently is the undocumented immigrants. Human being never been and on human never been as actually illegal by birth. So keeping all these aspects, so there are I'm going to actually discuss all these important aspects. So what are the actually different definitions generally used in the case of India and particularly in the case of other countries? So unauthorized or undocumented immigrants are the immigrants without citizenship or as a residency permit in their country of residence. Unauthorized immigrants entered their country of residence without authorization and have either remained undetected by authorities, overstayed a visa, or did not leave after being ordered to do so. So children born to unauthorized immigrant parents in some countries also part of the unauthorized immigrant population, since the countries where they were born do not have a birthright citizenship, even though these children may have never immigrated. So there are certain rules and regulation has been made to identify the foreign immigrants or illegal immigrants by the provisions of the certain rules and regulation by the government of India. Like we have a Citizenship Act of 1955. According to that definition, illegal immigrants basically identify the two broad aspects: without a valid passport or other prescribed travel document. Second one is with a valid passport or other prescribed travel documents, but remain in India beyond the permitted period. And second important aspect is Foreigners Act 1946. So this actually on the basis of this criteria, generally we actually consider person who are the immigrant or foreign immigrant or illegal immigrant on the basis of certain characteristics. And now in the case of India, there is some important actually, particularly in the case of Assam, there is a Assam Accord 1985 to understand the problem of this immigrant or illegal immigrant or undocumented immigrant. So there is a actually accord has been signed between the government of India and other representatives of the local population or student unions in 1985, 15th August 1985, to understand the negative consequences or demographic changes of the particular in the case of Assam states. So according to this state, actually before 24th March 1971, a person has been entered after that particular date, midnight, so they will be considered as a illegal immigrant as per the treaty, as per the treaty has been signed between the local leaders and student union, that is the ASU. So the cutoff date has been marked. But after spending so many years, so even the IMDT has been established as per the provisions of the government rules 1983. So still actually that problem will be persistent. So over a period of time, there is a problem not resolved to understand the gravity on issues of the illegal or undocumented immigrant, particularly in the case of Assam. So Assam became a most prominent state in the case of to these issues. So and there is there are so many actually court case has been put up on these issues to understand the actually negative or security concern in the case of illegal immigrants in the Assam state and particularly and the other states also, but much more focus has been given to the Assam because due to the demographic changes over a period of times. So now here is my much more focus on the data sources. So how to understand the gravity and situation in the case of through the help of data. Actually, in the case of data, we don't have actually accurate data which can directly or give the absolute number of figures. We have this much of actually illegal or undocumented immigrants in India. But somehow the actually census provided certain statistics. But census itself also not clearly says that we have this much of illegal immigrants or this and they are actually came to this period of time. But due to the certain indirect or direct method on the basis of certain tables like C, census B series data or C table, so on the basis of birth, on the basis of last residence, so somehow actually census provide the indirect actually estimations. So we have this much of access population. So who have came over period of times, and it shows that actually how this population growth has been changed over period of time. So to understand this actually foreign born population. So even along with the census, some other experts who are the belong to the different disciplines, whether it is an economist or a demographer or security expert, they have also actually given their actually estimation to understand this actually problem in terms of number. But that number is actually there are so many methodological issues and challenges also associated with that. Even so these are the actually aspects. And if you look the actually census, 2001 census, which tells about in like we have a 5.1 million person reported as a migrant by last residents from the across the international border, in which 97% of these migrants by last residents were from the eight neighboring countries, that is the Afghanistan, or out of this actually 3 millions were from the Bangladesh and 0.9 million from the 0.9 million from Pakistan and 0.5 million from Nepal, 0.5 million, 1 million from Sri Lanka. So on the basis of that, actually this on the place of last residence, somehow it gives the idea that India have actually adjust this foreign-born population, which have actually came through the previous decades. And also there is a certain expert group or even government also time to time establish certain committees or members, like we have in 2001 government of India represented, there is some special group has been constituted under the leadership of actually uh, Deputy Prime Minister LK Advani, group of Minister and National Security. So they've also somehow actually give the estimation that we near about 50 million Bangladeshis, 2.2 million of Nepalis, 70,000 from Sri Lankan Tamils, and 1 lakh from the Tibetan migrant. So they have given the idea of actually undocumented immigrants and refugees population who have around different period of time. So now actually there is a other actually well-known expert who have actually gives the ideas, like we have actually a political scientist like Merun Winner in 1983. He gives the idea that on the basis of population growth that India has actually estimated excess population 10.4 million in Assam in 1981. And other method like the census survival method, actually there are some demographer like Goswami and Saikia and in 2003 they have tells that that India has almost 2.8 million foreign immigrant population. So now here is question emerged that how this actually these methods are actually based on the scientific criteria, or maybe is it there clearly shows that this much of population are we have actually illegal or undocumented immigrants or not. There is actually lots of limitation in case of this all kinds of methods or data criteria. Like because this actually method also have a certain kinds of limitations like mortality and local immigration, local migration from the other neighboring states, and and also the authenticity in terms of this, because the census actually generally don't look the documents when they enumerator collect the information. So even there is also one of the actually estimation has been made by the very known economics professor Broa in 2003. So on the basis of population growth, and he has actually divided last previous census in 1951 to 2001. So on the basis of that, he actually tried to identify the how the population growth of Assam and all India level actually changed over a period of times. So in terms of two different categories, he has divided between Muslim and non-Muslim population. So even this actually non-Muslim population also increased, but in the case of Muslim population also has been increased over a period of time compared to compared to national average. But that actually that is also have a certain limitations in terms of actually computing that actually population, or even that actually method also have a limitation in terms of uh, like who are the actual immigrant, who are the actual access population. Okay. So these are the actually problem generally we look in terms of method and computing, because uh, uh, so these are the actually issues which actually not accurately shows that how much population we have in terms of actually illegal or undocumented immigrants in case of India or particularly in Assam. But there is a recent so many actually changes has been occurred and government has taken initiative. So like for example 1961 to 71 census on the basis of continuation immigration from Bangladesh or East Pakistan. So 91 actually 91 is also, as all of you are aware, that due to the due to the partition from the West Pakistan to East Pakistan, so many the local people have arrived in different states, particularly in the Assam states. And also the previous year, they have also arrived in different purposes. So due to safety of their life and genocide and other factors, they have arrived in Assam. So even there are also estimation has been made by the governor, S.T. Sinha, Assam governor of S.T. Sinha, former governor of S.T. Sinha in 1988 that Assam has a illegal Bangladeshi population. So on the basis of that, actually we can understand that the issues of undocumented or legal migrants is exist in the case of actually Assam, but it is very difficult to say how much population actually we have in the case of undocumented or illegal immigrants. Because if you will go to the 1971 criteria, 24th March 1971, and now it looks in the 2000, this coming decade, this decade in 2020. So almost we have a 4 or 5 decades previous uh, previous population. So there is a lots of changes has been occurred over a period of time. Even it's become a political issue also. And along with this, we have also refugee population. There is a 1951 convention of UNHCR, that UN Convention 1951, which shows that a refugee has a well-founded fear of persecution for reasons of race, religion, nationalities, political opinion, and membership in a particular group. So most likely they cannot return home or are afraid to do so. So war and ethnic, tribal, and religious violence are the leading cause of refugees fleeing their countries. So India has also actually refugees population of the neighboring countries. So for example, we have actually refugee population like Sri Lankan refugees population in India. So near about 1 lakh estimated population Sri Lankan refugees live in India. So mostly actually they came in Sri Lanka from Sri Lanka in 1983 to 2001 to 2010, and they were accommodated by the Tamil Nadu government in the different allocations of the states. And most of them actually refugees have moved back to the Sri Lanka near about 19,041 families. So still we have actually Sri Lankan refugees in India, and the reasons were to arrive in India were mainly the actually conflict between the two minority or versus majority group, Sinhalese and the Tamilians in 1984 to and 1999 or 2006. So government of Tamil Nadu has also given too much emphasis to protect to welfare and provide certain incentives to this population. And others we have like the Tibetan refugees. So near more than 1 lakh population also residing in the case of India. Those who have arrived from the regions of Tibet, and because due to the exile of the actually occupied the PRC, People of Republic of China, in 1956. So they came with their leader Dalai Lama and taken actually refugee status in India. But actually there is a certain provision, special provisions have been made for them under the control of Ministry of Home Affairs, the Tibetan known as actually Tibetan Rehabilitation Policy 2014. So, and they are residing in the different locations, particularly in the Dharamsala and even the southern states, Karnataka, Arunachal Pradesh, and so even government of India, this particular case actually looking benefit through the various development scheme on that. And others we have like actually Indian repatriation population from the Myanmar. So in 1993, so they arrived in different period of times. Even the we have actually Chinese Burmese refugees population near about 40,000. Those came around from the Burma, and they are mainly settled in the northeastern parts states of like Mizoram, Arunachal Pradesh, and Nagaland. And so we have also actually near about as per the National Crime Record Bureau, near about 200 population of the actually human trafficking. So they actually mainly came from the Sri Lanka, Nepal, and Bangladesh. And also we have actually major important segment of the population as there is also actually issues, are they illegal or the refugees or the from the state of Bangladesh, country of Bangladesh, near about actually, as I told you that in terms of data, we have actually in 1971, certain estimation made near about 10 million. On the other estimation made by 4.2 million. So, and they are mostly arrived in India in 1971 due to the partition from the West Pakistan to East Pakistan, and they were started living in different camps in the neighboring states of these Bangladesh, Assam, Tripura, and West Bengal. So approximately number are in different states. So if you look the numbers, estimation given by the certain expert. So West Bengal almost near about 7,50,000, 7,50,000, Tripura 1,40,000. So these are the estimation given by the certain actually expert group. But actually the question emerged here, how much this scientific actually data has. So in Assam also actually that is approximately 4.2 million excess population. Yes, madam.
Sorry to interrupt you. You have 2 more minutes.
Yeah, I'm going to bind up now. So 4.2 million population in case of Assam. So these were the estimation made by the different expert group. So on the basis of that, actually, I would like to conclude here that on the 4 important aspects. First one is that to accurate the number of the undocumented migrants become more difficult when a country has no direct adequate sources of records of the specific type of international mobility. It has also become more difficult to trace when immigrants have already spent 4 or 5 decades at the destination or arrival places of any country and have been almost assimilated in the respect of similar socio-economic, culture, and physiographic characteristics of the host place. Second one is that as per the above cited different sources of data, which indicated that there is the various limitations of each sources of data. Nevertheless, the different indirect method used by the academician, and they did the possible work to provide the inside the presence of the illegal or undocumented immigrant in many states of India. The census data could be most significant and reliable data source, which were directly or indirectly provides an estimate undocumented migrant in India, but both have a large absolute gap to estimate the numbers due to the nature of its data and methodological and analytical issues. Thank you, all of you. So, thank you all.
Well, thank you, Dr. Naresh. I think you wonderfully highlighted the problem of documentation and really covered a vast range of area covering Assam, Bangladesh, and all the eastern part of the migration and relating problem. I think we will have certainly some questions to you in our Q&A session. So looking forward to that. And as of now, I think the next presentation is by Miss Shahana Parveen. Do we have Miss Shahana Parveen here? Present?
She's not there. She's not there.
She is not here. Okay, so next presentation is by Mr. Arnab Datta. He will be presenting on dynamics of confrontations to returnees in Afghanistan, a post-2014 analysis. The topic itself sounds very interesting, and I'm particularly, because my personal interest is in South Asia, so I'm looking forward to Mr. Datta's presentation. Mr. Datta, floor is yours. Others may please switch off their mic if somebody hasn't so far. Mr. Datta, I think there is some technical difficulty at your end. not audible, Mr. Datta. Can you? Are you using earphone? I think you should remove earphone if in the case. Let's. Hello. It seems he has got disconnected, right?
Yeah. He's trying to
Some
log in
technical,
again.
yeah.
Yes,
We
not
should wait
able
for a
to.
minute. Let's wait for a minute and.
I think. I think we can go ahead with other
Yeah, I
presenter.
think
Meanwhile, he
you're
can
right.
join little later.
Yeah, maybe he can present little later. So let
Yeah.
me the next present.
Still having that network issue, I
Yeah,
guess.
he has joined again, right?
Extremely sorry. Actually, the bandwidth is very low out here. I'm in a remote place. It's a kind of a countryside. So I hope I'm audible to the organizers and to the honorable chair.
Is he clearly audible to all? I mean, I cannot hear him properly.
No. There's lots of the voice breaks.
Mr. Datta, we can do one thing. I think you should take some time to fix your technical glitch, and by the time we should move to the next speaker, and we'll come to you little later.
True.
Next presentation is by Dr. Just a second.
What happened, Ruchi?
So the presenter
Does
is
he want to
technical
present?
issue, so he is not clearly audible. So we are.
No,
Yeah,
both
someone
left presentation. Na, by the time he will say
Mr. Datta was.
no,
Yeah. We are going ahead with another.
better
We are
to go
doing
to
that.
left
We are
presentation.
doing that. Yes, sir. The next presentation is by Dr. Munir Alat, and he would be presenting on remittances and routes of social mobility, culture of migration and money making among Mapilas of Malabar.
Pradeep.
So,
Pradeep?
Dr. Alat, floor is yours.
Okay. Good afternoon to all. It gives me immense pleasure to stand before uh, the audience and in a platform which is known to me for quite a long time and keep very close to my heart. So as the chair has already mentioned, the title of my presentation is Remittances and Roots of Social Mobility, Culture of Migration and Money Making among Mapilas of Malabar. So at the outset, let me first briefly explain about what are the major thrusts of my presentation. So debates on the ever-increasing linkages between migration, remittances, and development have occupied central stage in the sociological analysis on migration and transnational movements in the recent past. These deliberations, though having greater bearing on the emerging countries, these emerging countries are yet to adequately track the trajectories of mobility and progress that these diverse communities and groups in these countries have experienced. So looking through the roots and roots of social mobility among Mapilas of Malabar, South India, through migration, remittances and subsequent emergence of an entrepreneurial middle class. This paper argues that the subtleties around the debates of social embeddedness of economic action provide more meaningful insights to the current debates on relationship between migration, remittances, and social equity in the home countries. Similarly, it is important to understand that how historical and cultural contingencies produce and reproduce particular orientation and direction towards remittances spending and pave specific ways for social mobility. By exploring the diversity of meaning associated with remittances practices, the study concludes that the rejuvenated sense of community provides newer parameters for relative economic and social standing vis-a-vis other communities and groups. So much of my deliberations today will actually dwell on the making of an entrepreneurial middle class, followed by the kind of large scale migration from the hinterlands of Malabar to the specific areas of Persian Gulf, and the kind of subsequent remittances and the production of cultural confidence in the community. And that has been the yardstick for money making as well as entrepreneurship. So it is by tracing the trajectory of migratory movements among Mapilas that the paper argues that migration has been seen as a catalyst for economic development and a strong agency in building cultural confidence among the otherwise economically poor households of interior Malabar. So before I get into the deeper arguments about my paper, let me briefly explain about the trajectory and routes of migration among Mapilas of Malabar. As you can see that the Gulf migration process uh, as a kind of collective mobilization started in the early 70s. What we can see is that a kind of they have see when it started the Gulf migration, the Mapilas were the first as a community to migrate en masse to the Persian Gulf by actually overcoming many kind of obstacles in terms of travel, documents, and etc. So they were the first people to explore the possibilities in the Arab Gulf in 1950s. See, one of the earliest studies on Gulf migration uh, uh, written by Professor Gobinathan Nair, which was actually conducted in 1980s. So he describes the hardest routes that Mapilas have traversed to reach the shores of Corfucan as early as 1950s, and a more disciplined kind of migratory movement in the 1970s. So it had actually a profound impact on the lives of migrant households, as well as a lasting impact on the development map of the community called Mapilas in the Gulf. So let me explain that trajectory in terms of remittances and the kind of economic and social changes that had happened in the hinterlands of Malabar. So apart from providing great employment opportunities, this migratory stream and the subsequent remittances had also directly contributed to reducing poverty to a great extent. And this source of economic stability in otherwise economically dreary state as well as communities actually contributed heavily to the state domestic product as well as an economic stability within the community under study. So, coming back to the argument that sociology of migration and entrepreneurship has focused much on the ways in which migrant remittances are channelized through institutionally legitimized means of acquiring and spending. This is something which is important in my study, that when we look at the kind of spending, remittances spending, we could also see that a particular orientation and trajectory of spending largely produced by the kind of orientation that a particular community has been shaped by historical contingencies and the kind of ethnic sentiments due to many internal and external factors. Thus, the centrality of Mapila's migratory movements to the Arab world as a stepping stone for economic and social mobility assumes greater significance, as a community has historically lacked either a strong base for vibrant entrepreneurship or a firm pedestal for economic stability as prerequisites for formation of a middle class. So when you look at some of the communities who have greatly benefited from migration and remittances, we can see that a particular orientation of these communities in terms of spending, in terms of investing, in terms of showing their status, mobility, in terms of where they are investing their money. So what we have seen Mapilas of Malabar is that they have greatly invested this into kind of informal economic activities, largely in business and entrepreneurship, both in the Gulf as well as in their home state. So this constant flow of remittances from the Persian Gulf had a profound impact on the economic perception and practices of Mapilas in the rural hinterlands of Malabar. Their trajectories of migration, poor participation in the modern educational and employment activities, memories of pain and suffering meted out in the hands of colonial powers, and the overarching sense of blocked return to their homeland, all these have actually contributed to specific orientation towards migration and money making. This is one of the thrusts of my presentation, that how do people spend on, or how they create their own economic horizon upon receiving the remittances. So what we can see that by virtue of their kind of poor economic background prior to migration, and also poor educational conditions, but at the same time high predilection to actually explore new possibilities, that we can see when Gopinathan Nair said that Mapilas or Muslims of Kerala was the first to explore possibilities in the Gulf. The early 1980s data showed that almost 80% of the total immigrants to the Gulf were exclusively from the community, and we can see that in early 80s it was almost exclusively from the Kerala that people have migrated to the Gulf. So this self-perception, so then I was trying to make a point that so there were many historical and social conditions that had produced a sense of exploring possibilities in the Gulf, and they feel that when we come back to Kerala or the Malabar, we do not have much opportunities available, both in terms of economic or social engagements. So this has made them to firmly stress on this migratory movement. So this kind of blocked return that many people like Potters argue has actually also contributed to a specific sense of remittances and spending remittances and money making. It is in this context I speak about the emergence and proliferation of a strong middle class among Mapla Muslims of Kerala. So self-perception of some of the exemplary respondents bear testimony to these roots of social mobility through migration, remittances, and formation of an entrepreneurial middle class. While continuous inflow of capital and skills to the Gulf pockets had produced a stable source of income, especially in Mapila hinterlands, marked by perennial poverty and perceived aversion to many material avenues of modernity, including modern education, this economic stability also began to spill over to new cultural preferences for establishment of powerful economic class capable of tapping these opportunities into concrete economic leadership. So the kind of, if you look at 20th century Kerala, that you can see that the communities were competing each other, both in terms of caste as well as the religious communities, to enhance and tap the opportunities of modernity through education and improving their material condition. So it is in this context that Mapilas perceive themselves as a community which is very backward, but they have actually opened up to a new avenues of money making, especially in the Gulf. So which they have actually produced in a more concrete and systematic way to create a new entrepreneurial space. So this route to rags to riches, while offering an economic option and a source of inspiration to others who have joined the bandwagon of economic leadership, also paved considerable space for further migration and avenues of money making. So it's a kind of sense of migration creates more migration, which actually I have explained elsewhere. So this trajectory of and predilections for migration draws close to what Candle and Massey observes a culture of migration in the context of Mexican migrants, and Saeed Ali, who has actually worked on people of Hyderabad, migrants in Hyderabad, the context of Gulf-bound migrants from Hyderabad city, where migration becomes deeply rooted in some communities that the prospects of transnational movement becomes normative. So this normativity of migration actually create and feed into further migration. Not only does the everyday civic engagement in these Gulf pockets eulogize successful migration and social recognition earned, but institutional arrangement are also designed that the strength of kinship and conjugal ties are invariably measured in terms of one's capacity to build empires in the Gulf as well. This is interesting to note that some of the kinship and conjugal relationships between among families in the communities were largely measured in terms of how far you are successful in the Gulf, and this was visible. So migration becomes like a rite of passage when a sense of legitimizing and essentializing a migrant past gets the nod of the community, as was practiced among Mapilas, where a successful bridegroom is the one who is expected to have migrated to the Gulf, made money, and exhibit the newly acquired status of what Osella and Osella calls a Kalan, means a person who is male, masculine, and ready to tap the opportunities both in the Gulf as well as in their native land, through spending lavishly on consumer goods and spending generously during social gatherings in the family and among the extended kins. So the kind of entrepreneurial middle class emerged in a situation where migration actually produced a particular way of money making, but also it is mediated through many social contingencies and ethnic sentiments, which are actually produced both by the history as well as the contemporary or contemporary status of a particular group within the larger social setting. This is where I wanted to make my point, conclude. I think by saying that it is important to understand that how historical and cultural contingencies produce and reproduce particular orientation and direction towards remittances spending and specific pathways for social mobility. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Relat. Wonderful presentation. And you highlighted the linkages between the migration, remittances, and development, particularly in the context of Mapila Muslims in South India. And very rightly, you pointed out that that remittances that these communities receive play an important role in terms of boosting their culture and social status. So it was really wonderful presentation, and looking forward for the Q&A session. Our third presentation, I would recall Mr. Arnab Datta to present his paper. The name has already been announced. So Mr. Datta, you are welcome.
Yeah. Thank you, ma'am. And I'm extremely sorry for this technical glitch. I hope now I am audible as well as I am visible to all. So without much ado, let me just start. As all of you can see, according to the title of the paper, I will be trying to address the questions of how these confrontational issues developed and why I have taken out particularly 2014 as my entry point into this complex feature of migration, then returning to the home country and going back, that is the cycle of remigration. So we have seen that as I'm speaking right now, even this phenomenon of migration, remigration, returning is continuing. And my focus will be particularly on Iran and that of Pakistan, because from 2014 onwards, due to some developments within these countries, suddenly we find the government of these two countries were taking up certain stern measures against Afghan refugees for a considerable number of years. Well, the first wave of migration started way back from Soviet invasion. We have the 9/11 incident that has been occurred. So before 2014, we see almost that 70% of the Afghan population have experienced movement in some point of their life due to the armed conflict or some persecution going on in their country, poverty, that economic reason, and related deprivation, as well as mental deprivation of all these factors. So in this context, we find that suddenly the Pakistan, this group, they in June 2014, they attacked the international airport that is in Karachi in Pakistan, and it is known as the Taliban Pakistan, where we find that the Pakistan authorities find the connection with the Afghan people, those who are living in the country, and that actually triggered the return from Pakistan to the Afghanistan. So along with that, we find that in the month of August and September 2014, again, there is the Islamic movement that is developing in Uzbekistan, where we find a considerable number of Afghans are again being involved. So the whole brunt of this blame has been placed to the Afghan population, and that is why we find that from 2014 onwards, the Afghans were returning, or they were majorly forced to return from Pakistan back into their own country. And then again, we find that the program of Zarb-e-Ahab or Zarb-e-Azab, that is hitting the people who actually planned this kind of a terror attack, was undertaken by the Pakistan authorities. And things began to worsen when we find in 2015 another attack was being made in the army public again by this group called TTP, that is the Taliban Pakistan. So from then on, the refugees were having no residential to Pakistan, were facing threats, they were facing extortion and harassments from the government officials. However, in the international scenario, Pakistan tried to keep their face up by saying that no, we are actually following the humanitarian rights, the norms of those, the UNHCR procedures, and because we are unable to cope up with the rising number of Afghan refugees, we're actually making a pressure on our own economy that we are compelled to make some of them return back to their own countries. So that was the statement that was given in 2015, month of July, by General Zubair, who is the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff Committee in Pakistan. At the same time, we find that the International Organization of Migration and the UN agency under UNHCR, they started also a scheme to collaborate, to negotiate and streamline this return that again started from Pakistan, where significant aid was being provided to the Pakistan government so as to regularize, coordinate, and to negotiate and maintain the angle of returnees so that it will be soothing to both the countries, maintaining the diplomatic relations. Another, some scholars like Samuel Hall, Schuster, Nassim Majid, they also state that Afghanistan's for their relations with India also might have soured the Pakistani temperament, and they have compelled these people to leave from their own country, because for more than 40 years, many Afghans, they consider Pakistan to be their own home country, and these generations were going up to the 3 generations. So when these returnees, we started in the returnees, we find that most of these Afghans were returning, were reluctant, and then majority of the returnees were very young, the adolescent or young Afghans who had find some kind of livelihood in Pakistan, and then they are being forced to return. So whatever may be the case, we find that under an international pressure, the government of Pakistan took some initiatives like the Joint Resource Mobilization Strategy as a way for reintegration in 2014. So there was a coordination that went on with the Ministry of Interiors of Afghanistan, and they began to employ, or they began to undertake some projects to assimilate people coming back to Afghanistan from that onwards. And the refugee hosting areas, those were Raha. Under this Raha project, we find that then Nangarhar, Imroz, Meerut, all these provinces were on the radar of the government so that they could take some kind of an initiative to reintegrate returnees from Pakistan. Now, speaking specifically of Iran, that was the second ground of international, or the second area of action, because Iran was also one of the favorite destinations for the Afghanistan, not only for the cultural proximity, of course, the religious stability, but then we find that economically more prosperous, were compared, were displaced to sell, especially after 9/11, they also were living for generations there. And then because of the US sanctions that began to start, particularly from the March of 2014, that Iran began to pressurize the Afghan refugees to leave their country, because the state building initiative in Afghanistan was under the US initiative. So we find that the presence of America on the soil of Afghanistan actually led the backlash of the action that so many of the people from Iran were forced to return. And we find that in the second half of 2016, more than 4 Afghan refugees were forced to return from Iran, as found in the writings of Samuel Hall, also of Majidi. Now, another important report of IOM, that is International Organization for Migration, in 2016, they also stated that next year, like 2017, more than 4 lakh of Afghans were compelled to return from that of Iran. So by 2019, December, we find that around 485,000 of Afghans have returned from Iran to that of their own country, that is Afghanistan. And the present report, the situational report of IOM this year, 2020, it shows that although the returning number is high, then this pandemic has also surged the numbers. So now we have more than 7 lakh of Afghans that we already returned from that. If this is Nimroz, Nangarhar, Kabul, as Afghanistan, these places are facing maximum confusion, maximum amount of disenchantment, because many are now trying to assimilate these people who are coming to belong to different groups of the Afghan lands, but they are not prepared due to their own pressure that they are carrying or they are facing in their day-to-day life. So we find that coordinated with the presence of is done. Whatever has been done is done.
Mr. Datta, I think your voice is not at all clearly audible. I think, has he got disconnected? Yeah, it seems he has
If
again
that is the case, you go to next presentation. He'll be getting ready and come
Yeah,
back.
no, sir, I think he had made a major portion of his presentation, and what we can do that he can connect him with the question answers.
Okay,
So
okay.
because he had some technical glitch and which is not being resolved, so I think we can. He has already presented 7 to 8 minutes.
I saw very low bandwidth. Maybe that is the
Yeah,
reason.
yeah. But he
So,
actually said that he would like to present. So
okay. So we'll go to next.
Mr. Arnab Datta,
Yeah.
can you hear to me? Your voice is not at all audible, so it is very difficult for us to understand and what are you saying. So
Okay, ma'am.
yeah, you either really need to check your internet connection, or what we can do that since you have made certain length of your presentation, we can connect with you during Q&A session if some question comes up. Would that be fine?
Oh, I'm okay.
Thank you. I can't get you. If can you write in the chat box whatever? Meanwhile, I should move to the next presenter. Thank you. So our next presenter is Dr. Om Prakash Manji, and he would be presenting on return migration and the challenge of integration, the case of returnees to Bihar, India. So, Dr. Manji, are you there?
Yes, I am there.
So please,
I
the
am
floor is yours.
audible.
Yes, you are. Please continue.
Yeah. I am not taking so much time. Only I gist of my paper is read and conclude within the 5 minutes. This paper is highlights return migration of Bihari migrants from foreign country and the Indian state. Here, big question is this: when they come back at home state, they are able to integrate. This is my question. And what are the problems faced within their state? The concept of integration works host country and homeland differently. It is a different from the integration is different from host country and it is a homeland. Both problem is same, but the concept is used differently. After spending a whole life in another state, migrants come at a homeland. Non-migrants always isolate them because we know in a village society, mechanical solidarity is worse. That's why people uh, always take and connect to each other with your face-to-face connectivity. When a second person will come, their ideology may be changed. Other hand, migrants people spend more time at a homeland. They mingle with homeland people. The problem has been solved. Now social cohesion get built. When there's a people are living with non-migrants, and then the exchange of ideas and the other benefits, goods that are exchanged, then the goodwill between them build up. During a COVID, Bihari migrants were going to a home, but I talked to personally about the village people about the Sisu. Some people said that all were earning money outside Bihar. How can they come now in Bihar? They want to say that they spend all the time earning money and they enjoy the outside area, and the problem which is occurred, then they came back at home. They should have stayed outside the Bihar. They were earning money. This type of differences occurs because they think that they are right person who leave our state for any circumstances. They are think that they are the original person. They are that people. They are always attached with the homeland. That's why he is original uh, people they live. This is the motto about that. Second part of my paper rests upon the positive side of things. Here, migrants how to connect himself with homeland. What are the factors which are bind them with homeland? I am not elaborated all the things because these are very general things, all of known. So I just the topic of this is just highlighted. Socio-cultural linkages, everyone known, transnational linkages, cultural linkages, old diaspora and new diaspora ideology, festival, technology. These are the things that are always connect the migrants, those who are left your village or a country. Above all, how to works depends on the socialization of migrants with family time to time, because in sectors where migrated to foreign country, always discussing about culture of India with family. Young generation has been well aware about the culture of India. They want to visit at the origin country to see, to feel, to joy, to live the activity of Indian people. Nostalgia of old migrants have been changed in the form of neo-nostalgia. This term, I think, neo-nostalgia is built up by me, because one nostalgia is filled by the old migrant, but I think when the young people, they are hear the story of India and other things, the new nostalgia has been built up, and this is the word I just put, new nostalgia for the young migrants. It means corner of heart filled with the story of all migrants into a second generation migrant. And this is a paper of the gist, and I conclude my paper about the return migration more important. It can be took part in the development of homeland in the field of culture, political, religious, and economical. Integration concept issue can be solved at a homeland through build up a common understanding. Positive impact of return migration can be started new policies of home.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Manji. Are you done? Because last portion I could not hear. Hello?
think he's
Yes,
again.
thank you,
Yes, yes.
Dr. Manji. Yeah, I was just wondering, I mean, it seems to be a case study. Is there any particular area or region in Bihar which you have taken as your research area, or it's a general about the entire Bihar?
No, it's so
I mean,
far
just out of
for
curiosity,
yeah, it's connected with the state migrants, those who have come from Delhi or other, and abroad, like Mauritius, Fiji, and other. It is a general for everyone. Are you hear me?
Okay, fine. Look forward for the. Yes,
Yes,
I
yes.
can. I mean, you are audible, and we Q&A session. Thank you so much. Our next presentation is Mr. Muhammad Sajjad Hussain and Mr. Muhammad Mutafizur Rahman, if I pronounce it correctly. Are these two presenter here present?
Yes, ma'am. Mustafizur Rahman here.
Okay, fine. Yeah, they'd be presenting on the cultural experiences and challenges for resettlement among Bangladeshi return migrants. So, please, both of you, floor is yours.
Distinguished chair, honorable presenter, and the viewers, welcome from this presentation. I am Mohammad Mustafizur Rahman, along with Sajjad Hussain. The title of our is Cultural Experiences and Challenges for Resettlement Among Bangladeshi Return Migrants. Presentation outline. Can you hear me, ma'am?
Yes, please
Awesome.
continue.
Presentation outline is fourfolded: introduction, research methods, findings and discussion, and of course, conclusion. Introduction. Few years ago, the return migrants had been considered as the great unwritten chapter in the history of migration. The causes may be addressed as the structural invisibility of the return migration and the most recently return to development countries. However, the cause is the issue of return migration has recently been increasing attention in the migration literature. But very interestingly, most of the studies of the return migration take an economic point of view and the subject matter of the study is limited to the causes of return, welfare, and development relations. But few studies also denoted the significance of non-economic factors of the return migration. Anthropologists also studied migration from different perspectives. For example, physical anthropologists think migration as old as the emergence of the hominids. Anthropologists focused on the social network and the study of networks, social capital. Cultural anthropologists also turned their attention to the identity, structure, and the agency. Even medical anthropologists addressed the medical issue regarding the experience of stigma in the return migrants. But though there are actually many studies on migration, the anthropologists, but still a trifling effort on the return migration. In this context, the present research investigate the social and cultural experiences in the web of permanent settlement among the return migrants in Kushkhali village in Satkhira district in Bangladesh. Through a fine-grained ethnographic account of the returnee, we saw what social challenges they faced in the local culture. In addition, the investigator analyzed social origin of these challenges. Research methods. The study employs the classic ethnographic method, which includes participant observation, expanded by the tape recorded, semi-structured, and of course, in-depth interview. Field work done during the January 2018 to June 2018. All the interviews were conducted by the investigator in Bengali. The question is, why Satkhira district? The answer is double-folded. First, the district was selected because it contains the migration populations. Second, it is known to the investigator. Data analysis. Basically, for the participant observation, we use the grounded theory. And of course, Atlas TI software, compilation, and other data collection to categorization the meaning and characteristics, we also use this. Validity issue. For validity, triangulation, a research verification technique, involves the collecting several kinds of data from the same source of time. Most importantly, names and identity of the present study participants have been changed without the altering the nature of the data. Findings. Mainly, these are the findings of our qualitative research, that meaning, feelings, and adjustment to the family, metaphor regarding the return migrant, changing behavior and social norms. Returning means having enough money, women's experience more sufferer, livelihood adaptation, social categorization of the work. Have a look on this. Return migrants have faced many experience on their home, on their own home actually. They have to adapt their social and economic condition of their home. Even family structure also changed in the case of new return because a joint family turned into the single family. For example, on respondent quoted his experience and concluded as, quote, then the member of family, don't love me at all. They loved my money, unquote. So there are complex relationship between the family members and the return migrants. Stereotype. Stereotype is a common, and in this field there is a seen that the short period of treated as a negative aspect, as a failure and the lazy person. On the contrary, return after a long period treated as a success and the clever. For example, Shah Jahan and in an interview said, quote, after 1 year, I returned to my village. Here, everything what happened with me was wrong. People saw me as a criminal. Even they did not get me in work in the crop field, unquote. So there is a stereotype among the return migrants and the state people. Most interestingly, the group of people who return from the different country also stereotype according to the return countries. For example, it can be simplified as return from the Saudi Arab means pious, honest. Dubai and the Middle East means rich. On the contrary, return from India means poor, bad character, like us, alcoholic, and may have another wife. This is physical settings and behavior form. You know, after returning in their own culture, many respondents have to settle in their cultural adaptation. And you know, according to Clifford Geer's, the cultural ecological theory, we know that the environmental factor had a great impact on the behavior. Here we saw that before migrant in the village, there were different tea shops and people usually took tea and smoke. But after migration, many return migrant complain that these are not tea shops, these are These are now Adda Khana, quote and unquote. Adda Khana is a Bengali language, which means the haunt of illegal activity. So many return migrants have to cope and have these settings and cultural behaviors are facing their challenges, because in these stalls sometimes people watch pornography and the tea stalls with main reasons for the young adult addicted. Women's experience in the men's society. As we know, this is the men's patriarchal society. So there is a social stigma and mental torture common in the village. If you look at the respondents quotation, quote, she said, quote, this area is my known village as it is my father's house, but some of my relatives with whom I grown up also avoided me. And I want to explain the case that the women go to the Mumbai for few years, and after return she was miscalled as Mumbai Ghata. In Bengali term, Mumbai Ghata means the men know everything in comparison to the local women. So in a bad sense, they are treated as Mumbai Ghata women. Okay, this is the social categorization of work. If a return migrant want to work according her or his wish, it is not possible, because there is a social image in the village where returnees do not involve in a profession. For example, a respondent said that he worked in Malaysia as a worker, but after return here in his village, he want to work as a night guard in the school. But her family members and parent, mother and father-in-law says that this is not possible, because it is they had lost their dignity. And quote and unquote, they said, quote unquote, it is Bangladesh, it is not Malaysia. We have our rules and we have to maintain it. So there is no freedom of return migrant to work according to his own or her wish. Okay, basically it is thought in the, it is also revealed in the field that the starting a business is a main criteria for the economic adaptation. But for the return migrants, starting a business is not so easy, because of the rival relationship of the neighbor and the relatives and an unknown competitive imagination. For example, a respondent said that they did not want to see me established, because some people of the village thought that I came with a lot of money and I did not know the local price. So they also challenged a high price. In this case, we say that one return migrants have to change their profession in 3 times, because people misbehave with them. People did not pay it according to the cash money. So he had to adapt with their local people's behavior and change his occupations. Okay, it is commonly thought that the low skill is nowhere, but in this study it is showed that the low skill is an important thing. There is no skill, especially for the migrant who go to the work as a labor migrant, but who have the special techniques in the after return. He also faced the same thing, because there is no special skill to use in this area. For example, one respondent said that there was no suitable work for me here, as I worked as a labor in the foreign. Therefore, I deposited my savings on the bank and maintained my family through the interest. In conclusion, I want to say that return migrants face the challenges like unstable family relationship, lack of livelihood opportunities, unfavorable working environment, and cultural adaptation. So in long exile life, the culture of the immigrant country is compared with the culture of the own country. So in this context, social distance has created between the returnee and stay. It creates a cultural shock to the return migrants. A binary relationship between the return migrants and the local people like us and them is seen. And in policy suggestion, I would like to say that policymakers should include the experiences and challenges socially faced by the return migrants in their policy for the better development of the society. And thank you everybody.
Thank you, Mr. Sazdad. Well put. You mentioned about the challenges faced by return migrants in in terms of permanent settlement in their country of origin. And of course, there are varied challenges. I mean, even if, because at one point we all are migrants, we all have moved from one place to another, and we can somehow relate to it, because if one goes back to their origin, there are problems of cultural, psychological. I'm particularly talking to those who have came from outside, that is international return migrants. Definitely, they have challenges of livelihood and the cultural adaptation, as you mentioned, and psychological effect that they go through. So it's very, very nice, interesting presentation. Thank you very much for it, and we look forward. Our next presentation is, oh, just a second. Our next presentation is by Ms. Himanshi Chandravanshi. Ms. Himanshi, are you there?
Yes, good afternoon, ma'am.
Okay, she would be presenting on debunking the myth of return and integration into Caribbean diaspora novels. So this is going to be a literature presentation. Welcome, Himanshi. The floor is yours.
Yes, thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, am I audible?
But you have to be little loud, because it's very, your
Okay.
sound is very extremely soft.
Okay, ma'am. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Himanshi Chandravanshi, and I'm a PhD research scholar in the Department of English, University of Jammu. The title of my today's presentation is Debunking the Myth of Return and Integration into Caribbean Diaspora Novels, wherein I will be discussing how return and successful integration to the homeland remains a myth in case of diaspora population. The basic premise of my presentation is that the cultural dislocation experienced by the diaspora population in the host country creates a nostalgic longing for the country of origin, which in turn creates a conflict among the diaspora population regarding sustaining in the hostile environment and returning to the home country. However, the diaspora population's relationship, having undergone a change with the homeland, puts them in a problematic situation vis-a-vis the home country, where integration upon return becomes increasingly difficult. And this is manifested through the two characters, Pilar Puente in Dreaming in Cuban and Yolanda Garcia in How the Garcia Girls Lost Their Accents, both of whom feel a desire to return to the homeland only to discover their incompatibility with the homeland. This is the theoretical framework which I have applied. Rogers Brubaker's his arguments that orientation to a homeland, it remains a characteristic of the diaspora population. That argument has been applied. Then A.K. Matsuoka and J. Sorensen, they argue that the diaspora population is constantly haunted by myths of return. Along with that, Stuart Hall's argument that diaspora population, it grapples with a sense of loss, which creates a desire to return to the homeland, or to find a place where they can actually do away with that sense of loss. Then F. Cochrane, in his work Migration and Security in the Global Age, Diaspora Communities and Conflict, he argues that due to the apparent urge to find oneself, that he has linked it to the existential aspect of finding oneself, the diaspora population longs to return to the homeland. Next, P. Wagner argues that during their absence, the home countries, they undergo change, making the return integration a difficult process for the returnee diaspora subjects. Alfred Schut, he argues that the homecomer is a different person, both for himself and for others, which further problematizes the process of return integration. And T. Suda, in the essay Ambivalent Encounters with the Ethnic Homeland, argues that the diaspora return subjects, they confront ethnic rejection and social exclusion in the homeland upon their return because of they are being seen as cultural foreigners by the people of their own community. For this presentation, I have selected one novel from Cuba, which is a Caribbean, which is an island nation in the Caribbean region, from where migration to the United States, paced up after Fidel Castro's communist revolution, became successful in 1959. The second novel I have taken from another Caribbean nation or an island nation, the Dominican Republic, from where emigration to the United States is a historical phenomenon, but it came to a halt around 1930 with the coming of dictator Rafael Trujillo. However, after his assassination in 1961, Dominicans again began migrating to the United States in large numbers, which led to the formation of a large Dominican diaspora in the United States. And the two novels that I have taken is, the first is Dreaming in Cuban, written by the Cuban American writer Cristina Garcia. And the second novel that I have taken is How the Garcia Girls Lost Their Accents. This is written by the Dominican American writer Julia Alvarez. And Pilar Puente, her character Pilar Puente in Dreaming in Cuban, and Yolanda Garcia in How the Garcia Girls Lost Their Accents. These two characters manifest the element of return and integration. How the myth is debunked through their the ways they try to integrate and the ways they try to adapt to the homeland. But their interaction with the homeland environment, they depict that it actually remains a myth which is later debunked. Now coming to the argument. So the first aspect is unbelongingness in the hostland, how both the characters, they feel a certain kind of unbelongingness in the hostland, which creates in them a desire to move towards the safe environment of the homeland. So in both the novels, Pilar and Yolanda spend life as split subjects in the hostland, substantiating what P. Webner also argues, I quote, migration and diaspora engender a split subject of fractured reality. So Pilar in Dreaming in Cuban, she fails to make the United States her home. In spite, as she herself says, and I quote, I've been living in Brooklyn all my life. It doesn't feel like home to me, unquote. Her failure to make the United States her home and her failure to belong, it again substantiates Alfred Schutz's argument, I quote, to feel at home is an expression of the highest degree of familiarity and intimacy, unquote. Pilar does not feel any kind of familiarity and intimacy with the hostland, due to which she retains a longing for the homeland. She is aware that, I quote, every day Cuba fades a little more inside me, unquote. But again, I'll quote from another secondary source that I have consulted. She feels constantly torn between here and there, between her country of origin and her country of residence. And this has been taken by Vijay Agnust. The work is Diaspora, Memory and Identity, A Search for Home. In the second novel, Yolanda, the character of Yolanda Garcia, too grapples with a sense of loss in the host land, again substantiating what Stuart Hall has said, and which I already discussed, that the sense of loss is always felt by the diaspora population in the host land, and they are constantly looking for a place where they can actually belong. So this unbelongingness, it generates in both the characters, it generates a desire to return. So both Pilar and Yolanda's failure to belong to the host country generate in them a desire for return to the homeland, which is characteristic of the diaspora subject, as argued by F. Cochrane. And I quote, existential aspects of the desire to return are linked to the apparent urge to find oneself, to uncover rooted connections to the past that provide meaning and worth in contemporary life, unquote. So Pilar is constantly, she's constantly looking answers to the questions like where I belong. Is this the place to where I belong, where I've been living all through my life? And fed up with everything around there in the United States, in the hostland, she wants to make way to Cuba in the hope that returning back home would actually help her find some sort of order and solace in balance in her life. The similar idea we also find in How the Garcia Girls Lost Their Accents, where the main protagonist, Yolanda Garcia, having had too many, as she herself says, too many stops in the road of the last 29 years. She has had failed relationships. She realizes that it is very difficult for her to behave either as a Dominican or as an American. So she also has a kind of a split identity, which makes again, which makes her long to return to her homeland with the desire that she can find that balance and stability in her homeland. Then in both the novels, both the characters, they actually they are successful in returning to their homeland for a certain period of time. Pilar reaches Cuba and instantly feels a sense of close proximity with her homeland. However, she soon realizes her problematic position in Cuba as a returnee diaspora subject, where she realizes that, I quote from the text, "I'm probably the only ex-punk on the island, how no one else has their ears pierced in 3 places," unquote. So, in spite of the fact that she feels a connection with her homeland, she realizes her problematic position, which again substantiates P. Wagner's argument. I quote, "Overseas migration sets in motion a process of dislocation along with the encounter with new social environments," unquote, which makes Pilar realize that she is probably she does not even belong to her homeland. Then in How the Garcia Girls Lost Their Accents, Yolanda, she returns as a bicultural, bilingual subject to her homeland, and she is constantly made aware of the difference that underlies her and the other Dominican women. So there is a contrast is drawn between her and her Dominican cousins. Her Dominican cousins who look perfect, ideal Dominican women, and Yolanda who looks as in between subject, and because of which her cousins, they disparagingly refer to her as Miss America, and they say, "Here she comes, Miss America." She's again reminded of the difference, and I quote from the text, "This is not the States. A woman just doesn't travel alone in this country,"
Manshi,
unquote.
Ms. Manshi, you have 2 more minutes. Please conclude.
Okay, ma'am. Uh, Again, Yolanda's bilingual identity is manifested when she finds it difficult to speak in Spanish. She has begun to lose her Spanish, her original language, and during the time of crisis or during any casual conversation, Yolanda uses English as a medium of conversation, which again highlights her, the distance she has. The distance that has grown as a result of her long, break away from that homeland. Uh, in Dreaming in Cuban, Pilar, though she realizes that she has formed a strong connection with her homeland and her home language, but she's at the same time she's aware that she has to leave all that, and she has to return to the host land or to the United States. And as she says, and I quote from the text, "I know it's where I belong, not instead of here, but more than here," unquote. So to conclude, the basic argument of the paper is that the diaspora subjects are haunted by a sense of loss in the host land, which creates in them a dominant longing for the return to the homeland. But upon reaching the homeland, they find the familiar structures that they left behind of the family, community, landscape. They have actually undergone a change, which make the prospects of a successful return and integration very difficult. Pilar and Yolanda, they both realize that as a result of their bicultural, bilingual identity, it is probably very difficult, nearly impossible for them to integrate to their original homelands. They fail to feel at home both in the host land as well as in the homeland, and return and integration in case of diaspora return subject as manifested through Pilar and Yolanda, it actually remains a myth. Thank you, ma'am. That's all.
Thank you, Manshi, for bringing out these cultural dislocation and nostalgia and all the other complexities that a migrant go through, and what we call it as a tussle or a fight between heart and mind. One says to go back, one says to stay. So we'll get back to you definitely in Q&A session. And our today's next presentation, probably the last one, is by Miss Josephine Sneha, and she would be presenting on the possibility and impossibility of returning to the roots, a study on Maria Chaudhry's beloved Strangers. So we have another literature presentation. Miss Josephine Sneha, are you there?
Yes, ma'am, I'm here.
Okay, please welcome, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, ma'am. Greetings, everyone. I'm Josephine Sneha. The topic of the paper that I'll be presenting before you is The Possibility and Impossibility of Returning to the Roots, a study on Maria Chowdhury's Beloved Strangers. So, to begin with, Maria Chowdhury is an Indian writer in English. She was born in Bangladesh, and her work of art, which is titled Beloved Strangers, is written based on her own diasporic experience, which is more or less like a memoir. But then once she starts moving to the other place, her entirely different attitude and everything is what is recorded here. So instead of writing it as a memoir, she has actually written it in the form of novel, adding her own fictional elements. So to state, I would like to say that, so there are two kinds of diaspora, that is the old and the new. So the old diaspora, the old diasporic fiction focuses on novels which is related to slavery, trade issues, etc. But then the new diasporic novels, they actually focuses on people who move to one place to another place in order to search a professional life or a better life for education. So the novel of Maria Chowdhury, Beloved Strangers, once again falls into the new diasporic fiction. So this new diasporic fiction talks about the protagonist, that is none but Maria herself. So her possibility of or impossibility of returning to her home country. So Maria actually, as a small girl, she is very famous in her hometown because she belongs to a respectable family. But the thing is that they belong to a middle class family and they have their own financial issues, etc. Apart from that, she has her own brothers and sisters, but then they live in a solitude. So they all live in the same house, but then they have their own issues going on with their life. So they do not interact apart from being in the together in the dining table. So Maria's mother, she has her own aspirations and dreams which has become unfulfilled due to her children. So she wanted to become an singer. So she locks herself in the room and practices for her singing sessions. And then her father, so her father is not very much expressive. So he does not show any emotions to both the wife or the children. So he goes out, earns for the family, and then he comes back home and then he stays there. That's all. So Maria actually feels all alone and she wishes that someday she must go out, maybe to a foreign country, and then that would be a home because there she would feel the sense of independence. So this is inside her right from the childhood. So as she grows, she comes across a neighbor called Bablu. So he is the first person who teaches the pornographic information. So he passes a pornographic magazine to her. At first, she is very shocked and feels repulsive. But then she feels excited when she's all alone reading it. So she could have complained it to her mother or her sister, but then she does not do it. Instead, she feels that maybe people would become more open while discussing it in the foreign countries. And then she does not feel any connection with Bablu. So that's it. And there is a girl called Mala. So she is a helper girl who's of same age to her. She visits her house for helping her mom in household chores. And at that time, she feels very attached to her. So maybe it is because she actually describes that maybe it is Mala's eyes or the words she uses or the way she shows her love and affection. So she feels attached to her, but then it is not acceptable in the Indian society. So that is also once again goes into the darkness. So once she's 18, she goes to New York and there she actually entirely cuts the ties with her family and she starts living her life there in freedom. So after going to the university, of course, she faces discrimination at the first because since she is from India, her skin is being different from them. So she's being discriminated. So she's mocked, made fun of and everything. So she does not have much friends there. So now she starts thinking about her life in India. Whereas in India, she belongs to a respectable family. So everyone knows her. She had many friends there, but still she was not satisfied there. So often her memory goes from to and fro from India and to New York. So but then there is a kind of a fire within her that she must someday start a home or a family of her own in the New York. So once she visits a bar and there she meets a guy called There she meets a guy called Yami. So he is actually a budding artist. He lives in a very small apartment and he does not have a future on his own. Instead, he's that only then and now he is actually getting few projects and he is living on that. So he tries to woo her, and often he visits her in the university with kind and great gestures. So obviously Maria feels infatuated towards him and they start living together. At first everything seems perfect, but then the true colors of him comes out later. So now she also feels that maybe her decision to move to New York was wrong, and her stay in India should have been the final decision, because situations like the discrimination, being cheated by her boyfriend, and then also there is a terrorist attack that she faces. So she feels that maybe if she was in India, she wouldn't have felt that. But whereas since it is an alien country, the people do not feel the sense of brotherhood or sisterhood towards her. So this is the final call where she decides that she must go back to her roots. So even while she's thinking about that, she starts thinking about her brothers and sisters. So one of her sister gets married, like just like her in another place in UK, and another sister, she's completely happy in another foreign city. So she does not want to return to India. But whereas the other sister, she wants to return to India, but then her husband is in such a situation that she has to stay with her husband in order to get a promotion. So she wants to go to India, but then she's not, her situation does not permit. So finally, Maria feels that maybe she should leave. So she starts getting dreams or nostalgic feelings that how she was in her childhood. And also she's now scared that maybe when she goes to her home, everything would not be the same. So her sisters are not there. Her brother would have grown up. So she's not ready to face the reality. So she's often feeling very depressed. But then all her friends like satiate her, saying that it would be fine if she goes there. So finally she goes there to Bangladesh, to her own city Dhaka. So there she goes, and she finds an empty house, because the father who was the pillar of the family is no more, so he was not there. The mother who was actually trapped, who felt trapped in the loveless marriage, she's now free because there is no children to take care. So she's now roaming from one place to another place for her singing career. And then her brother, he was very small when she left this place. Now he has very much grown up, so he feels very shy to mingle with her. And of course, as I told, the sisters are in the foreign country. So now she feels a bit alien even after coming to India. So she thought things might be normal, but it is not. She has to readjust herself to live under the roof where she once lived. So, but the only thing is that she actually tries to change herself because she feels very safe here comparative to there. And also she feels that even though the home is not the same, it is actually not just the walls and the roof which we call it as home. It is the family members. So she vouches to herself that someday she would work hard and make all the family members to come together and make it a home. So the only consolation that Maria gets is that not every diasporic person are blessed to return to their roots, because some of them have their own situation where they will not be allowed to come back. And some of them, of course, they'll be happy in the foreign country, feeling independent and successful in their professional life. So they do not want to come back. But whereas Maria is blessed to return to the roots, and even though it is not what she has expected, and the world has completely changed and different, she feels that she has been partially successful to her return, and she promises herself that she'll work hard in order to become a better person in the roots of India. That's all. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Joseph and Sneha, for your wonderful presentation. And so with you, we have come to the end of the presenting session. So the floor is now open for the Q&A session. If I would like to ask one question that has for Dr. Munir. I think he can read in the chat box. Dr. Munir and Mr. Mustafizur Rahman. Yeah. Can you please answer the question which is being asked to
actually,
you?
I think this is a very important issue he raised, and it's really tough to engage in this sector only for the academician. I think both academician and the policymaker should come together to solve this type of activities. And in Bangladesh, policymakers are a separate separate authority, whether the academician are different. So I hope in future academician and the policymaker will come together and solve this type of activities in migration field. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Munir, would you like to add upon it?
The question is related to return and resettlement, I guess. Okay. So, see, with regard to the kind of return or pattern of return migration to Kerala, see, we can see that actually presents a different kind of trajectory. As you can see that there is a regular returnees because of the Gulf migrants are largely temporary, and their work condition and structure is also very vulnerable in terms of not having a permanent residence or not having a long-term visa. It's all depend on many conditions and policies in the Gulf countries. So the process of return is quite natural. And the other form of return is definitely people who have made money and actually who have expanded their entrepreneurial base and who find their place in Kerala as where they have made considerable presence and expanded their entrepreneurial base. So they do not go back. So that is one way of return. And another way of return, as you can see in this COVID pandemic, they lost their job and there is job theft. So people have come back, not having much to gain here. But if you look at the structural condition in the place of origin, it's not very comfortable in the case of Kerala, especially people who are unskilled and semi-skilled, who constitute the chunk of the migrants from the state. So Kerala as a state do not perform really well or has not been performing well in economically. Its industrial growth has been very minimal. But at the same time, there are some steps by the state governments by for kind of inviting migrants and to say that you can actually stay back here. So the recent policies of Norca, especially the Dream Kerala project, which says that be comfortable here. If you want to kind of invest in Kerala, we are ready to give place, opportunities, and basic infrastructure for that. So there are so many such kind of Gulf-based or Gulf-bound entrepreneurs who have come back or who have expanded their base both in the Gulf and Kerala. But at the same time, return is still not a very kind of concrete by virtue of the very nature of the job that they are doing and the kind of condition here. So as I have mentioned in my paper, there is a sense of blocked return to majority of migrants who are at the mercy of this kind of policy makers. So when the policies change, or if there are some kind of contingencies, like in 1991 you had Gulf War, or then you have in 2010 onwards you have something called Nitakat, where people are expected the nationalization policies make the immigrants tougher to live there, and definitely the recent COVID pandemic. They all have actually created a sense of rethinking about return, but at the same time, conditions are not conducive. Actually, I was talking about people who have actually sensed this kind of vulnerabilities and have made their presence more stronger, both in the Gulf and in the homeland. For them, return is part of their economic engagement, and they do not really worry about that.
Thank you, Dr. Lat. The next question is again for Mr. Rahman. Mr. Rahman, would you like to respond to that question? Hello, Mr. Muhammad Mustazafir Rahman.
Yeah. Actually, the condition of the migration in developing countries like Bangladesh is not same. In Bangladesh, there are different type of migration, especially who undocumented migration and who migrate for the short time of period. So in this case, government has taken few steps in Bangladesh rather than in foreign like Dubai, Middle East, and where people migrate for the long time of period and the documented well documentation. There is some sort of policy, but in border areas, especially the with India and India and Bangladesh, there is a border area. So many people migrate for different purpose or for the short time of period. So this is really challenging for making any kind of policy. And return, of course, return it's a social concept in a sense in Bangladesh that family relations and boundaries is very high among the people, whereas the migrant, after migrant and before migrant, the economic solvency sometimes was not clear among the migrant. So this is the scenario in Bangladesh, I think. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Smita ma'am.
Yes, Miss Bajpayee. Yes. Would you like to ask some more
Can I
questions?
ask another question, ma'am? Am I allowed to ask one more
Yes,
question?
sure. We have some time. We can take 2-3 questions.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. My name is Anila Bajpayee. I'm a professor at Jain University, Bangalore. I'm also currently looking at return migration from a policy point of view. My question, of course, to Himanshi ma'am, I think it was very beautifully done that you spoke about debunking the myth of return migrants. My question to both I think Josephine ma'am and Himanshi ma'am, since you all are looking at literature point of view, is how does one define a successful migration? I mean, if a migrant comes back, do we then say that it is unsuccessful, or what defines a successful migration?
Well, it depends to certain characters, ma'am. So for some, they are able to come back. So they'll be having a happy family the same way. Nothing would have changed. So for them, it is of course a successful migration. But then in cases like Maria, if they come back, everything would have changed. They have to once again readjust themselves, just like the way they had to readjust themselves when they visited the alien land. So it differs from one characters to others, and of course to the situation.
Himanshi ma'am,
Ma'am,
could
may I
you
respond?
since your your title focused on successful, the term successful was used, because I'm also looking at policy making for the return migrants. So for me, that kind of captured my attention. It was a very interesting.
Okay. Ma'am, it's basically that split between being being successful in the sense that assimilation or acculturation or imbibing the characteristics of a particular community to which they belong. If they at any time the migrants, uh, if they are in the host land or if they're in the homeland, at any point if they feel out of place, that wouldn't be called a successful migration or a successful return migration. That happened to both the characters that I discussed in my presentation. They were not feeling successfully integrated into the host land, but they didn't feel successfully integrated even to the homeland. So in both the cases they remain at a at a fractured juncture. They didn't know where they belong, but ultimately they do realize that homeland integration, homeland return, or that successful return migration is as difficult as that host land integration is sometimes it is professed to be.
Very well said. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Smita, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vajpayee. Nice hearing from you. So we are almost come to the end of the time. We will not be able to take any more questions because at 5 o'clock we have scheduled another session. So as the concluding remarks or to sum up, I would just say that the very varied presentation we have, and all of them are very interesting, very insightful, and in fact, we look from the cultural perspective, psychological perspective, and all the other socio-economic challenges that a return migrant face. And I think in terms of policy perspective, because in terms of policy, we have a policy planning one when one wants to migrate, the pre-migration, all the trainings and all. We have policies regarding the migrants. A person is into another country and faces some challenges there. The quality or the intensity might vary, and it can be debate at the another place. But definitely, we need a very categorical and very calculative policy efforts to also reintegrate those migrants, because when they come back, it is very few states in India which have this kind of policy to reintegrate the migrants into the states. One, I had some questions to ask, but because of the paucity of time, I'll just mention them. I do not want any answer right now, but maybe we can ponder upon later on, and maybe we can discuss it at some other platform. So from Mr. Arnab Datta, whose presentation was on Afghan migrants, very interesting presentation, though we could not hear it much of it, but because when one migrates, one has an assumed benefit in the mind that from migration one may achieve. But in case of Afghanistan, because migration is classical way of migration was always a push. It started from a push, but nowadays people are also migrating from the betterment of their life. But I would just, I was wondering that in case of Afghanistan, the situation of push factor still continues very strongly, very heavily. If you were talking about the policies, the government and the United Nations and all the international organizations that are putting it in Afghanistan, and they are trying to bring the migrants home. But in a situation of the political uncertainty, in where the society is not still cohesive, the security threats looms large. I am just wondering that what kind of migration, reintegration, and resettlement would be possible at present scenario in Afghanistan. I do not want any answer, but just we all of us need to ponder upon certain questions. My second point is for Mr. Om Prakash Manjhi, Dr. Manjhi, regarding this Bihar migrants, because Biharis they constitute a huge portion of migrants, because wherever we see that there are the Punjabi migration, then Biharis go and fill in the gap in Punjab. There are Malayalis migrants, then Bihari go to Kerala and fill in the local jobs and all. But who comes to Bihar when the Biharis go out? That is one thing I would love to know, because and secondly, do they also face similar challenges once they go back to Bihar? Because then like those in other states, when they come back, there are certain other migrants who have already come and filled their gap. So the tussle is there, but I'm not sure. I don't know if the same thing same is the case with Bihar, because I haven't seen some other migrants who have gone to Bihar and are working there. So maybe because of the less information I have about it. And the last thing which I would like to point about Himanshi's presentation, which I really liked a lot, and she wonderfully mentioned about this nostalgia thing and the oscillation of between the two places, the home country and the host country. But I would love to discuss with you, maybe at some other forum or maybe later on, that this the image or image of return thing which we are talking about, is it same with those places also which are not very secure, and the migration was the cause of a push factor, a strong push factor? Is the same that people would like to be calculate that one should stay or go back because they have already migrated, because they cannot live at the place they have left? So maybe the feeling would be more emotional, more in psychology than in actual terms that they really wish to go back. And second point is that the same intensity of nostalgia or the same intensity of emotion may not be in the second or third generation of the migrant population. So these are certain points I would wanted to discuss, and I wish we would have more time so that we can really had a very interactive and constructive conversation over these issues. But because of the paucity of time, we really need to wind up the session. And I think a lot of messages. Yes. Thank you all of you. Thank you very much. And I really personally enjoyed each of your presentation. And I would just give it all over to Ruchi. Ruchi, it's over to you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Smita. Thank you for valuable insights and suggestions on the papers and presentations. Thank you so much for sparing your time and chairing the session and making it so interactive and informative. Thank you all the presenters for making the session actually insightful and interactive. Thank you all the participants for being there and being supporting us. Thank you, everyone. Now we have plenary session from 5:30, so stay connected and join room number 1 for another session. And we are looking forward for your paper. Do submit as your revised version, including all the suggestions and feedback you got from the presenters, speakers, and the participants. We are trying to publish it in a month. Just submit us in a month time so that we can publish it. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Smita. Thank you, Dr. Munir. And thank you all the presenters.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Sahu sir, we are done with the presentations.